All right. With that, I will open this meeting of the Easthampton Planning Board for Tuesday, July 20th, 2021. All members are appearing remotely, and we are recording this meeting. If anything, if we experience any technical difficulties, any item not handled will be moved administratively to August 3rd. First up is public speak. Is there anyone here that would have anything to say not on the agenda? If you want to raise your Zoom hand or turn on your camera and raise your hand. I see nothing. All right. The first item up is a public hearing for Clovercraft DBA Budsy, and I will be recusing myself from that. So I will turn off my microphone and camera and let James take over.
All right. Thank you, Jesse. Good evening, everyone. Before I begin, I'm going to talk about something a little bit unusual here. Normally, item like this that's coming before us, which is a special permit application, in fact, always requires 4 yay votes in order to pass. With Jesse recusing himself and with the inability to attend the meeting of our newest member, we have 3 members here, which means that we can't, in fact, vote on this issue tonight. So I'd like to just talk about what I'm hoping to do tonight. Plan to treat this like I would any other special permit that comes before us, which is to say that we're going to ask for a presentation for the applicant. We will then, as the planning board, discuss what we find, have some back and forth, then open it up to the public to get their input. Then we would normally go into a process where we would try to generate some conditions if we felt like there was approval or get more information. At that point, we would then read our findings and conditions as we had it so far and then vote to approve. So I am not entirely sure where this will go. If it happens that it's a relatively quick thing, which would get us to a vote tonight, then I think that Curtis did some great work taking the temperature of the board quickly, and we are available 1 week from today for a kind of an emergency meeting, as it were, where we could then just do the final parts of this. If, in fact, we need additional information that would take longer, and it may take the applicant time to put this information together, then we may need to give them additional time or extend it as we normally would. I'm not sure how this is going to go. We can talk about that when we get to it. But I wanted everyone to understand that this is a little different. We can't actually vote on this tonight. Everyone on the planning board understand?
Yes.
Okay. In that case, we're talking about Clovercraft LLC DBA Budsy for a special permit on 17 East Street, which is in the Highway Business District zoning for a marijuana delivery operator. Is the applicant here to discuss it?
Yes, this is Kevin Perry. I'm here.
Tell us all about it, Kevin.
All right, James, thank you. I like your house back there. Very nice. Sure. So we are applying at the property that I own through Norwich Properties for a marijuana delivery operator, which I believe most of you are involved in the process for developing the zoning requirements that's different than the courier operation. That'll be operated out of the existing building with very few modifications. Curtis, I don't know if you want me to bring the plans up or just talk through this. It's your call.
Yeah, I'd like the full dog and pony show. Show us everything you've got. And is he a host, Curtis?
He is.
Okay,
I can pull him up though.
Okay.
Plans.
Wherever you prefer, Kevin.
Sure. So I can kind of give you an overview of the site here. I don't know. Can you see my screen?
Okay, there we go. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Okay. So can you guys see it if I zoom in on an area?
Yep.
Okay. So we have the existing site, essentially the paved areas. I'm not sure if you can see my cursor as well, but the side of the lot is paved as well as the front. That's all existing. This front outbuilding is not part of this. That is tenant space. So really we're talking about the main building, which consists of sort of the barn or warehouse area and the office. If we look at kind of a more detailed site plan here, you can see we have proposed, we would be removing what essentially now is a lot of the construction equipment, things like that, that's been there over the last 20 years or so. That would be relocated to a different site. And this would become the delivery vehicle and parking when they're not in use, as well as staff parking up front here. We have an existing sign that's up by the road that we would simply take. It's been through several different businesses, but we would like to re-letter that with our logo. And there is also a sign that's existing that is up on the barn, if you will, the gable, that we would like to re-letter with leaving the same sign structure, just putting new vinyl graphics over that. All the exterior site lighting remains. There's really zero changes to the exterior other than changing the logo on those two signs. So that nothing else really changes, no landscape improvements, no lighting, anything like that, it all stays. If you move to the, let's see here, the interior. So this is kind of flipping it around. You're looking in plan view. So East Street would be north in plan view. The thought process here is part of the CCC requirements. What they will allow is a fenced-in area, a secure area, but what seems to be preferred is a sally port method for loading. So we are fortunate to have this barn and warehouse area where the vehicles would enter, the garage door would close, and you have a secure loading area. The product would then be loaded from what is essentially an existing vault. Basically, we will have to reinforce the walls, but this layout, fortunately for us, is all existing from when it was our construction company years ago, and then some changes through the years from other tenants. But we have an existing vault space. The drivers will come in, they have a pickup zone here, and load the vehicle and head back out. The
vehicle goes into the garage to be loaded.
Correct. Yep, in the secure, much like a sally port. So it will come in, the door is closed, a locked container will be brought and loaded into it. So the process works where, starting from the beginning, say, when we receive wholesale products from suppliers, they will also be brought into here. So they'll take their delivery vehicles, bring them into here, close the door, and sealed containers will be brought. They're then brought into the receiving area where it's all on cameras, weighed, received, and then stored into the vault. Once all those orders are in and our product is in, rather, as delivery orders come in, they're fulfilled in the vault. So there'll be probably one staff person working in the vault. They fulfill that order. They will then put in a locked and sealed container, which will go into another secure room that's card access for driver pickup. The drivers would then arrive, grab their containers, put it in the vehicle, and head out for the deliveries for the day. We can carry up to 10,000 of products, so they'll be taking a day's worth of orders. So it's not a lot of in and out. It's more leave and you're out for your shift. The rest of the space is fairly straightforward. We are not open to the public. However, in the odd case somebody does come visit, we have the existing side entry that'll go to a secure vestibule, our security room, and ancillary offices. We kind of have a driver training room in here. And again, this is receiving and cash handling. So, it's fairly straightforward operation, similar to a dispensary, but, a little more discreet. There's not a lot going on, less traffic. It's instead of, for $10,000, you would normally see that as probably an average of about 100 patrons. We're going to have one vehicle leave. So much less traffic. This is our security plan, essentially the camera locations. Those were verified with the police department. As part of the package, you probably saw the police chief's acceptance of this. He has reviewed it. I think he had one camera that we added, and other than that, it was accepted as is. Also depicts card readers and things along those lines. This is our access control, rather, card readers, smoke detectors, things like that. And this is overlaid with everything onto one plan here. So fairly straightforward. Like I said, lighting stays the same. There is no odor mitigation, essentially, as you would have. So it's not like it's cultivation, manufacturing, and not even like a store, because the product stays in the vault and the vault is closed. A lot of times in the stores, you have a little more of an odor problem because you're bringing the product out of vault into the retail, and that mechanical system is recirculating throughout the entire store. We use mini splits in the vault, so the vault is sealed. You know, we really have no neighbors nearby. Chatted with the neighbors. I don't think, to my knowledge, the immediate neighbors did not have any opposition. You know, I can kind of run through my list. The exterior lighting remains as is. The parking, we have roughly 31 parking spaces that are existing. Those are striped spaces. We actually have substantial room for more, but we tried to keep it simple with the striped spaces. We anticipate 3 staff per shift. There will be drivers, obviously, but those drivers will come in, take a delivery vehicle, and head out. So you're should be hopefully swapping 1 for 1 to the vehicle. We will operate 2 shifts per day and be operating within the hours allowed by the mass zoning, or I'm sorry, Easthampton zonings hours. So
the 8 to 11?
Yes. Yep, the 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. So we'll be running, you know, 2.5 shifts. There'll be some overlap in there. A lot of communities are stopping the delivery at 9 p.m. So anything after that, it's going to kind of die down. There are a few that are allowing delivery up to 11, 12 p.m. So, but substantially, it will wind down between 8 and 10 p.m. A couple other pieces here. I'm not sure if you have any specific questions. I mean, I know it's the first of its kind, but it's relatively straightforward. I think it's.
I do have some questions, and I'm sure some of the other members of the board do. I'll start off with a few, if that's okay. Can we go to page 3 of this document you're currently looking at?
Sure.
I kind of want to just talk. I'm going to start first with security. There's a lot of things we have to talk about: traffic, security, a whole bunch. But let's just start with security. If you look at what I'm calling the south wall, which by that I mean down on this map, in the vault, it looks to me like there's 3 windows. Am I wrong?
You are correct, but those are going to remain. However, they get sealed over. So they get tinted black, so you can't see it from the outside. And from the inside, they receive wire lath, insulation, and plywood. The whole vault gets wire lath and plywood. Okay.
And then the garage door, the whole thing coming in, how do you know what vehicle is coming in? There doesn't seem to be, I'm guessing there's a closed camera based on the other thing, but how can you tell who's coming in, and how do you queue them?
You have 2 means for access for that. So first of all, there's cameras outside. So there's full-time security during operation hours. The person at security will monitor that camera specifically that covers the entire parking lot, and you can manually open the door from security. However, the other option, if they're tied up, each driver will have key card access. So that door both coming in and out is key card access. So you'd have to swipe your card and then hit the up button.
So they drive up, they get out, they swipe, and they go forward. Is that an opportunity for someone to kind of get in the car while they're getting out?
Well, I suppose, James, you run that risk everywhere. I mean, they're going to be doing 10 stops a day. They could, you know, I mean.
How many people are in the car?
2, and 1 must remain in the vehicle at all times. So there's two folks. There's cameras on the car. There are GPSs on the car that operate 24/7. There are cameras on both the inside of the cab and all sides outside the cab.
So it's not an opportunity for someone to jump in because the driver basically remains.
Vice versa. Either way, yes. There's always someone in the vehicle. I mean, you know, not that this is related, but I think you would be very surprised at the amount of cannabis you pass on the road every day, and the amount of deliveries. I mean, just that, you know, each dispensary probably takes on average 4 or 5 deliveries a week, some substantially more if they're busy right now. You don't know it, you don't see it. They're white vans, they're white cars, very discreet. You'd have a hard time picking it out between, you know, the plumbing van and the van filled with cannabis. And they also, a lot of them bring far more product. A lot of them, to my knowledge, the manufacturers do not have the limit of 10,000. Actually, I know they don't, because we've received at our Southampton location, say, deliveries of $50,000 of the product, and we're one of 6, 7 stops for the day. So I certainly understand the concern, but
all right. It seems very safe. I'd like at this point to make a comment about the Easthampton Police Department, who put a letter in the record for this dated June 24th, to whom it may concern. On June 17th, 2021, members of the Easthampton Police Department reviewed a preliminary site and camera plan for the Cannabis Delivery Center project proposal at 17 East Street in Easthampton, Mass. After making recommendations and reviewing their initial site plan and camera plan, I am satisfied with the proposed physical security of the location. Once the security policies and procedures for Cannabis Delivery Center become available, we will review and make further recommendations if needed. As this project moves forward, the Easthampton Police Department will continually meet with the Cannabis Delivery Center and make all appropriate recommendations to our satisfaction, and it's signed by Chief Alberti. So clearly the EPD is on board with the security plans as you put them out. Okay, so I'll move to, if anyone on the board has any questions, I have a couple about kind of driving and view access and stuff, but I want to give a chance for anyone else. Anyone have any questions?
This is one regarding the product. You're not generating product here, correct? Like the product comes in sealed and it leaves sealed, so you're not generating any trash or anything like that that has cannabis in it, correct?
That is correct. And if the concern, and maybe I have this wrong, but if the concern is cannabis product disposal, is that part of the concern?
Yes.
So the CCC has very strict regulations regarding that. Even though we are not a manufacturer or cultivator, it's the same regulations that pertain to retail. And as somebody who has ownership in another retail location, I'm very familiar with that. And there's a lengthy policy for product that has, for whatever reason, needs to be thrown out. It's touched the floor, it's fallen, it's damaged, the seal got broke. It has to be rendered non-usable. So it ends up going in essentially a coffee grinder with coffee grounds. You grind it up until it's no longer usable. You put it in a bag, and 2 registered agents document it and dispose of it in a locked dumpster. So, but
where is that locked dumpster? Is it on site or is it elsewhere?
That is on site. We have that out back. It's an existing dumpster location. Nothing really changes. It's a dumpster that stays there all the time. It's been there for quite some time, and it does stay locked. But there is a written standard operating procedure that'll get approved by the CCC for the disposal.
Can you show us that on the plans, please?
Sure. So right now it sits right in the middle here.
Okay. All right. Anything else, Chris?
Nope, that's it.
Okay. From where you are right now, I do have some other relevant questions, and I have a bit of a non sequitur. I noticed a non-marked room in the upper right of the garage. What's that?
Simply storage. It really has no use. It's probably going to end up being kind of vehicle parts, storage, windshield wipers, and things that may go wrong in anything in the fleet, but it has no purpose as far as the operations.
All right, just checking. And I note that it and the mechanical room have no indication of like a door, but I'm guessing it's because these are not that relevant.
Yeah, this is more just schematics. The facility's built out, so the detail here that our designer did was not on an incredible high level, to be frank, because everything's existing.
Okay. I have a tight, I get the sense of this, and I think, overall, I'm not going to have too much of a problem, although I do like to have final plans when I approve plans. I hope you understand where I'm coming from.
I do, but these would be considered, because the space is built out, we don't have any plans or any, no pun intended, but any plans for future plans beyond this, because everything is built out. We simply are looking to call the building inspector and get a certificate of occupancy based on the existing building.
You mentioned the signs in the front. Can we take a quick look at those? I think that might have been page 2. I'm not quite sure.
Yep. So this sign we simply overlaid, but that's what's there. These poles, and right now there's a white sign that's there that's actually for the insulation company that used to be there.
Got it. So same positioning, same stand. Is it on both sides?
Yes, correct. Yep, it's simply rewrapping the existing metal signage that's there.
It's not really depicted in scale, and I just want to kind of mention, which is something Curtis brought to my attention, reminded me of, is that our signage ordinance says that these signs should not exceed 100 square feet. It kind of doesn't look like it does to me, but can you confirm that that won't be more than 100 square feet?
Yeah, that is nowhere close, even between the both. That sign is roughly probably 3 by 3, if that.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And the one on the building is maybe 7 by 3 at most. That's an existing one as well that we're rewrapping. It's actually smaller than what's here. It has a little, the top corners are kind of eased to go with the gable. So it's actually smaller than what you see there, but combined they're less than 100 square feet. They're not even close to that.
Perfect. Let's take a look at the parking. I think it's on the same page here, just a little to the right. You have quite a few spaces. I think the number was 31, 5 delivery vehicles. And I think that, if I'm not missing the mark, is because once you go to 6, you have to have a percentage of them be fuel efficient with electric or diesel or some such, right? So what this means is that you'll have 5 kind of base vehicles, and then you have 14 employees. So we're looking at, on average, maybe 20 vehicles. So am I wrong on that thinking?
Yes and no. No and yes. So I guess the first part is for the vehicle. Our initial plan is to purchase 5, and yes, and full disclosure, the triggering the sort of green vehicle, if you will, is what capped that. We probably would have went for 6 or 7, but I want to figure out the operations before we start doing that. We're concerned. We would love to do an electric or hybrid. Our concerns are that they are not going to be efficient for the amount of driving we're doing. So that's a problem. I mean, actually, one of our partners has a Tesla, and I can tell you making a run to Boston is not an option because you have to stop and charge. So what we'd be doing is going with some type of, I think the biodiesel was an option, things like that. But we want to figure that out before we make that leap to the 6th. We really don't want to be limited. We feel that there's, a much higher delivery vehicle count that may be required if this is successful, more in the neighborhood of 20 or so.
20, okay.
Yes, but our thought process is there is nothing in the regs that says these vehicles cannot go home with folks. Okay. So what we would like to ensure is that we fall within the 31 spaces and we're not parking vehicles all over the place and having an eyesore. But the logistics of it, we'd like the option to have this facility accommodate up to 31 vehicles that may be 20, 25 delivery, where the staff take them all home. So we have far less during the day that are actually on site.
We have no specific use for, chart that shows parking for this type of use. So it sort of defaults to the closest thing we can find, which comes out to about 1 per 300 square feet.
I actually wanted to update on that. I found the specific citation. My apologies for misinformation earlier. The new cannabis ordinance does impose a minimum parking standard of 1 per 600 square feet of the structure, which would be 7 parking spaces, or 0.75 spaces for each employee in a maximum shift, which comes about 10. Either case, you exceed it by a bunch right now, but you just want to be aware of that one as you scale up your fleet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the scaling is kind of where I'm going with it. And either way, the old format and this new format, which holds sway, you're well over with the 31 spaces. So I think that one of the things, there's kind of 2 things I want to talk about here. One is kind of about traffic flow. And then the other is that one of the conditions that I definitely want to see added in is that, should you at any point increase the total number of delivery vehicles proposed, that you'll come before the board to demonstrate that 1/3 of the vehicles are the hybrid, diesel, or electric. And at that time, you know, again, show your compliance to the parking regulations as they stand. So that's a condition that I definitely think should be in there. In terms of the flow, if you could scroll down to the very front driveway entrance, I see that there's some pre-existing plantings. It kind of looks to me like there's two entrances, a narrow one to the right and a larger one to the left. Am I right?
Yes, the one on the right is really not.
It's for the other business.
For this, in plan right, that is that narrow one. That's more for the tenant who's in the front building. You have to drive. That's a fairly tight area in front of his. So, however, it is pretty much properly depicted about our entry there. It's actually a little bit wider than I think what's shown. It's ample wide for traffic to come in and out at the same time through that location.
It looks to me, because of the different distance of the plantings, that your sight line's going left out of that, which would be toward the Oxbow intersection there, or lights eventually, hopefully soon. It looks like the sight lines are good. There's good distance between the plantings. The one to the right looks right next to it. About how tall are those plantings?
Oh, they're very short. We keep them low. I mean, it might even be depicted in the signage picture, but depending when we trimmed them, honestly. Well, actually, I can show you this picture quickly. So as far as the traffic flow, this photo's dated, but you can see you really have ample room for
you do. Okay, good.
The car versus driving in front of this building and around.
Yeah,
and
okay.
There's just two bushes, but I think on page 2 we might depict that a little better. So these aren't exactly well, this is spring, but they're just very little shrubs. Yeah.
Okay. In fact, the sign does more to block the right turn, but you'd pull out in front. Okay, no problems there. That looks good to me. Now, because you don't have visitors really coming in, these are your drivers coming in and out. And the drivers, if I understand what you said correct, they get loaded up in the beginning of the day. They head out. There's 5 of them currently. They might come back once, maybe twice in the day. You're really talking about a limited number of overall trips, probably less than 30 in a day. Am I right?
Yes. Yeah, I can tell you that's based on the previous tenant who was an insulator. He had around 20 trucks, maybe more. They all made about 2 trips a day in and out of there. So I think, if anything, from the last tenant, we're probably a reduced traffic count than what they've seen there in the past. When we were there for 5-star, I mean, this is going, geez, I don't know, 8-9 years now. At that time, we squeezed in 20 employees and their countless trucks, deliveries. I mean, we were a much heavier traffic flow, almost nonstop in and out of there all the time.
Okay. And I see here in a note that no traffic impact statement is required according to section 10.10.7.7 of the proposed cannabis delivery operation because it's not open to customer visit. Is everyone on the board comfortable with the traffic flow? Do they have any questions about the traffic flow?
Harry, I know you had a question earlier. Did you want to raise that right now, actually?
Oh, I didn't see that. Sorry.
No problem.
Well, I want to talk about the product. That's what I want to talk about.
Go for it.
Well, isn't there different kinds of marijuana that you'll be delivering?
I guess. What do you mean here? I mean, yeah. There's different SKUs. Are you meaning, or?
Yeah. Well, the question that I have: how do you know what you're going to put in the wall? I mean, aren't there different types? I mean, how do you know what you're going to stock in there? How does that go about? How do you determine that?
Well, we intend to carry probably the largest selections. So, I have one of the owners of Dreamer in Southampton. We have a good idea of what moves and what doesn't for products. There's around 12 to 15 major manufacturers and cultivators in in Massachusetts. And, we do plan to carry quite a bit. So we have an inventory system. We bring in what we feel is moves. It goes into the inventory system, stored in the vault, and leaves from there. All the product is tracked through metric, the state seed to sales system. So they know literally from when it's a 6-inch tall plant, whose house that ends up at the final sale, every bit of it.
It's got to be like a package store, after a while you get to know what you're going to sell, that type of thing.
100%. Yep, that's a good analogy. Yep, that's it.
Okay. I'm going to discuss a few things here. I just want to kind of make notes and a few questions. I'll start with a question first. What are you going to do with snow removal?
We push it out into the area that's, well, we're showing it as unpaved, but it actually is more or less a impervious surface already out back. So if you look into this area here, that's what we really do now, is it all comes from here and goes around and gets sort of stacked up back there.
And that's paved, you said?
Not as nicely, but it is, yeah. What happened was years ago when they did the bridge project, I don't know if you recall that there, they graced us with hundreds of tons of millings and basically covered that whole back area and rolled it out. So it is not technically paved, but it's like 2 inches of millings back there.
Okay, intriguing.
Yeah.
All right, so you're not doing any changes to the landscaping. I don't see any issues there. I don't see any issues with the lighting based on the plans here that show sufficient downward pre-existing lighting as appropriate for the space. I note that there was a community outreach meeting as appropriate, and that you also have a, let's see, the community outreach meeting, you have an agreement with the city, right?
We do, and as an item of note, we actually, because of timing, ended up doing 2 outreach meetings, both of which had 0 attendees. So,
okay, all right. All that looks good according to plan. We talked about trash. We talked about the parking spaces. A little bit about traffic. I should probably mention. Let's just see here. I'll make sure I didn't. I think that's everything I had on my list. Anyone else on the board have questions before I open it to the public?
No.
All right. Is there anyone here for the public that wishes to speak on this? I think it's *6 or *9 on your phone to raise your hand, or you can. I'm not seeing, but if you undo your video so I can see you, that also works. Anyone? Anyone at all? Can also just undo your mic so I can see it. Someone wants to talk about it.
My expectation is that a lot of these people actually may be here for the
Next project.
For the conservation restriction, as I believe I recognize some of the names as residents.
Okay.
Might be wrong on that one, though.
All right, so no one wants to talk about this. In that case, let's just talk as a board here. I don't have any issues with this project. I'd be ready to approve, in which case I'd like to run through the conditions and the findings. Chris, Harry, do you have any issues?
No issues with that. Go for it.
Okay. So I'm going to run through the findings, and the plan is basically, Kevin, that this video is recorded, and our additional member will review this in full. And after I kind of go through some of these findings and stuff, at our next meeting, having reviewed it, we'll continue this meeting, but we'll be able to just essentially do a very small recap and then right into the vote. So hopefully that works for everyone. All right. I'll start with the base required findings according to 12.7.9, that this project conforms with all relevant city, state, and federal regulations, which it does, that it protects abutters and city amenities, which it does, provides convenient and safe vehicle and pedestrian movement in and around the site. The flow looks appropriate to me. I believe it does. Possesses adequate drainage, protects wetlands and watersheds. You're making no change to the existing use. It's a little odd about what's in the backyard there, but I'm not sure that I see that that's relevant, again, because you've made no change from the existing use. Mitigates adverse impacts on the city infrastructure and utilities, provides for off-street parking, loading, unloading, and circulation. You're not making any new hookups of any kind, pre-existing plumbing, electrical. Is that all true, Kevin?
That is correct. There's literally the only construction, if you will, that's happening there is the installation of security. So cameras, card access, that type of thing.
Okay. Integrates in the surrounding landscape by way of design features, including buffer and open land. No changes, essentially. Minimizes area of vegetation removal. You're making no changes. Maintains consistency with built environment in regards to dimensional regulations, parking, architectural style, and landscaping. Again, no changes. Possesses adequate measures to prevent water pollution, increase runoff, or prevent flooding. Just no effect whatsoever. No changes on that. Possesses adequate measures to ensure the site will not constitute a nuisance via noise, pollution, or visual flagrancy. You have two very minimal signs. There's no growing happening here, so I'm sure smell will not be an issue. And because you don't have regular consumers going in, noise shouldn't be an issue either. As far as the proposed conditions, I kind of mentioned one. We have a few of them, and I'd like to just read them out, and we can kind of go through them one at a time. And Curtis, thank you for helping to put these together. Did you want to add something? Oh, you're just okay. Go ahead.
So I wanted to add one thing, which is that if as long as we're discussing them here, this is the first marijuana delivery business that the board has reviewed, and therefore the first marijuana delivery business for which I've drafted conditions. I want to be respectful to applicants and any other members of the public present who might have opinions on some of these decisions, on some of these conditions. Specifically, the most of these are fairly standard to other cannabis businesses. The one that is not relates to the delivery fleet. The board will note that it does not trigger multiple times if multiple vehicles are obtained. It only would trigger once the number of vehicles exceeds 6. You got to do a one-time thing that says this number of vehicles is electric, diesel, or hybrid. I can obviously reconstruct that either if the board feels like that's insubstantial enough, or if the applicant feels like that version or a version drafted by the board is too burdensome for operations.
And I'll read it in just a second so we know what we're talking about.
I just want to flag that ahead of time. Thanks. I'm all set.
I actually do want to make an amendment to it as you've written it, but let me start with that's B, letter B. Let's start with A. And again, like Curtis said, the rest of this is all boilerplate for most of all of our standard conditions. A. The applicant's responsible for obtaining any permits, licenses, etc., from the regulatory bodies as appropriate. Okay. Now B, the one we were talking about. The applicant must comply with section 10.10.7.5.1. If at any point the total number of delivery vehicles in use for the proposed operation equals or exceeds 6 vehicles, the applicant must come before the board in a public meeting to demonstrate that 1/3 of vehicles operated by employees or contractors of Budsy at 17 East Street are either hybrid, diesel, or electric. That's the existing language. I'd like to modify it such that it says, and prove conclusively that additional vehicles don't exceed the parking limitations.
I guess I just want to make sure that that is not a condition prior to the addition somehow. For example, we're starting with a low number. When we open and we find out, after our first week that we are absolutely killing it and we want to pick up, 10 vehicles, we'd like the ability to do that without coming back to the board. I mean, certainly we can notify the board, get on the agenda. I just would hate to be held up for 2 or 4 weeks on having that growth without approval.
I think that's a tough one. I definitely think we'd want to approve before doing it.
Yeah.
And again, for me, the issue is twofold. 20 vehicles is a significant change. It's 4 times as many. You're talking about more trips, more traffic flow. It does kind of tighten up the parking limitations a little bit. Perhaps we can modify the number. I think Curtis probably chose 6 in there because that's what normally with the CCC triggers the green, as you said, Kevin.
I think that's actually just a City of Easthampton regulation. I don't think that's a CCC one.
The 6? Yeah. Okay, sorry. Yep.
There is no CCC, right?
Yeah, my bad. Yeah.
One possibility with the permission of the board, when I drafted this this particular item, I drafted it to occur via public meeting rather than public hearing. One possibility could be that I want to put this. A rule like this is only as good as the enforcement. And to put it bluntly, I don't think I would know if Kevin purchased a couple more vehicles until such time as he came before us with a letter saying I've gotten a couple more vehicles via employees or contractors. I kind of want to be I'd kind of want to meet halfway on this one to see, maybe once Kevin's acquiring more vehicles prior to the meeting, he files a letter with me as planning staff that says, this many are electric or hybrid. Here's demonstrable proof to the satisfaction of the board, which he's then operating under provisionally until such time as the board approves it formally. Does that sound acceptable, or would that still expose the board to too much risk?
Well, I mean, what's going to happen? He's going to buy those vehicles thinking he can do it. I'm talking about you in the third person. Sorry, Kevin. But then what happens if we deny it afterwards? I mean, that's business disaster. I find that concerning. The only reason I could think of that would deny it would be that too many are purchased. What if we just change the number to say 10 instead of 5? The trigger is 10. So if you need a few extra, you can do it, but you want to go for a big fleet, then you have to come before us.
I mean, I would be fine with that. I'd like to, given the number of parking spaces, I don't know if this language made it into the regs, but I did recall as part of those hearings that there was a thought that there just needs to be a parking space for each delivery vehicle. But again, if these vehicles never make it here other than to pick up product.
Yeah.
I just want to
I would take that in consideration, but until you come before us, I won't know. And it's not just delivery vehicles, it's also the employees' normal vehicles.
I mean, I'd love to see the number more like 15 without having to come back with the understanding that anything, either we document that 30% is diesel or electric if we hit the 6.
We're horse trading now.
Yeah, my fear is, I mean, while I understand that there's the possibility of being denied would be a problem, but honestly, to know that if there is a possibility that I'm not going to be able to say run 10 vehicles out of here, it's kind of a deal killer for us, to be blunt, because in order for this to truly be successful, it does need to ramp up in a period of time to operate north of 10, 15 vehicles. There's very slim margins on this, and just logistically to service the area we're looking to in Western Mass, it's going to take, at the end of the day, 10, 15 vehicles comfortably.
If the margins are so slim, why get into this business? I'm so confused why it's such a non-profitable or risky business. Why are you getting into it?
Well, with risk comes reward. So, I mean, I'm happy to have that conversation offline when we're not, there's.
Okay, fair enough. It's not a planning board topic.
But yeah, look, I'm not saying it's not a profitable business, but you do need to be able to scale.
So there's two considerations that are incumbent on this condition. The first is to ensure that the business operates in accordance with 10.10.751, either by having a fleet under 6 vehicles or having 1/3 of those vehicles be hybrid diesel or electric. And the second consideration is what happens when you scale up operations. Will the site still have enough parking, including both parking for delivery vehicles and parking for number of employees? One hypothetical condition, or two hypothetical conditions that could satisfy this, is one that simply caps the number of delivery vehicles by the number of parking spaces, by the maximum allowable, presuming the site operations comprise 2 employees for each delivery vehicle, which would be, each of which would require 0.75 parking spaces, plus whatever that maximum number of, it's arithmetically figure outable how many total number of vehicles you could support there. I know that that's very grammatically correct.
You're saying pre-calculate the number and it's 1.5 per vehicle.
0.75 points. Yeah. Oh, it's 1. No. It's 1.5. It's 1.5. He's right. So
that doesn't account for office staff. That'll be there permanently.
Exactly. Right. And I think that has to be in there. But what does that give us just on the 1.5? We have 31 spaces. We're talking 15 something. I don't know. What's that? It's more than that.
It's 20. 20 times 1.5 is 30, right? So you've got how many spaces?
31.
So yeah, 20. But that doesn't account for people that are working in the building that aren't traveling in those.
I mean, I would be more than happy to set this at 15 for now. Honestly.
Yeah, and because Kevin, I'm amenable to that, because while Chris's point is absolutely right, I was thinking about it, that doesn't include some people that are parking there. It also doesn't include what you said, in that you're going to work to try and get these to park at home. We don't know for sure that that's happening, but I think we can do a little give and take in the calculation for that.
Quite frankly, we don't want them all there for a variety of reasons. It is logistically easier for us to have some of these as take-home vehicles. We verify with the CCC that is perfectly fine as long as there's no product in the vehicle. They're not marked. They're just white SUVs. So, to try to make a happy medium, 15 would be great, to the point that we don't have to come back to the board unless we exceed the 15 vehicles, with the understanding that after we hit 6, we do meet the 30%, kind of environmentally friendly vehicles.
If it's 15 vehicles, okay. So, and you're saying that some number of these are the employee vehicles, and therefore do not generate one of the 2.75 parking spaces associated with the 2 employees who are going to be there as part of the maximum shift, right?
It would be 15 delivery vehicles, so that leaves us another 16 empty spaces. Potentially if folks either don't take them home or the anticipated 2 staff. I mean, the thought now is someone's going to be in security and someone's in the vault filling the orders. I mean, that's essentially the staffing for this.
Part of me is, thinking 12 is probably a more reasonable number, but in that range, the difference business-wise between 12 and 15 really is about the same. I personally don't have a problem with 15. Harry, Chris?
Nope, no problem.
Well,
in that case,
so that's the 15. That's the 15 vehicle cap, and then what's the pleasure of the board regarding the diesel, the hybrid versus diesel thing? There's 2 options that I see. 3 options that I see. Option 1: least possible work for all parties, least possible enforceability. The board says the applicant is responsible for ensuring that 1/3 of vehicles are hybrid, diesel, or electric if the fleet equals or exceeds 6 vehicles. That means the applicant's never obliged to come back before us. 10.10.7.5.1 is upheld, but we never have any proof that he's done that. Fine either way, just mentioning it. The second option would be at the point at which you equal or exceed 6 vehicles, Kevin would have to come and email me with some evidence that those, or either a signed affidavit or notarized statement or invoices, I don't know, that says the vehicles are hybrid, electric, or diesel. And then that's brought before the board at the next hearing for them.
Yeah, let's stop there rather than going for public hearing with it.
Oh, public meeting. My apologies.
Meeting with it. I think it's fine if Kevin, when you trigger the Easthampton ordinance's regulation of 6 or more vehicles for the green, that you need to provide the planning department with a written and signed affidavit.
And I then bring it to the board at the next public meeting.
Sounds good.
Does that work for you, Kevin?
Sure does.
Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to split that into 2 conditions for the final hearing, which is going to be maximum of 15 vehicles delivery fleet. You can come back to amend that at some point, but it's going to be a condition as it exists right now. And the second one is you have to abide by 10.10.7.5.1, have to submit a letter to the planning department at such time as you go above 5, saying that 1/3 are going to be hybrid, diesel, or electric. Does that make sense to the board?
Sure does.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm going to get through the rest of these. Again, I'm doing this for the sake of speeding up the next meeting so that we don't have to do it again, although I will probably go through the new 2 ones that you're creating at that time just because, so we can see the final language. Our C now says any change in ownership which is subject to review and or approval by the Cannabis Control Commission shall appear before the planning board prior to operations to acknowledge the existing conditions of the permit and compliance therewith or changes thereto. A purpose of the public meeting shall be for the planning board to recognize the new ownership and determine if any change is significant enough to require a modification of the planning special permit subject to a public hearing. Close enough. D, any changes that significantly alter the general operation, vehicle fleet, or use of the site shall be presented to the planning board at a public meeting. The purpose of this public meeting shall be for the planning board to determine if the change is significant enough to require a modification of the special permit subject to a public hearing.
This one was obviously congruent with letter B, which called out for the need for that to be reviewed at public meeting. Since vehicle fleet is something that we're comfortable with being reviewed, both in terms of the fact that we've capped it and then that we're expecting a letter should it ever go above 5 vehicles, I would strike that mention of vehicle fleet so that we know that the changes to the vehicle fleet are covered both by the condition that caps it and by the letter that we expect from Kevin should they ever get above 5.
I agree. You should strike it.
Cool.
It's duplicative. E, any waivers granted by the CCC associated with the operation shall be reviewed and approved by the planning board prior to implementation, except for any waiver granted for the sale of marijuana products tested by the Department of Public Health rather than the CCC. F, the special permit associated with the use is contingent upon continuous licensure by the CCC. The applicant shall provide notice to the city of any enforcement order issued by a state agency in accordance with section 10.10.711 of the zoning ordinance and shall coordinate and arrange an annual inspection with the building inspector each year from the date of opening in accordance with section 10.10.7.12. The applicant must provide a copy of their license in good standing from the CCC prior to beginning operation as a cannabis delivery operator.
I got a point on this one. I'm sorry to keep interrupting you. I actually don't know. Kevin, do you know if delivery businesses are obliged to do opening day operations or opening day plans?
Not specifically, no. I mean,
okay. So I'm just gonna go through and check the amended section 10.10 and make sure and see if that portion is still relevant, and I'll strike it if not, and make mention of it at the next meeting so that everybody hears it.
I honestly can't imagine it's relevant for this kind of business. There's no lines, there's no people stacking up, there's no queuing. I mean, it doesn't make sense to apply that here.
I'll check and make sure.
Okay. G. The hours of operation of the cannabis delivery operation shall be the maximum allowable by applicable ordinances, including the Easthampton zoning ordinance, section 10.10.5.4. And finally, H, the applicant shall provide notice to the city of any enforcement order issued by a state agency in accordance with section 10.10.711 of the zoning ordinance. Does that all sound good, Kevin?
Yep.
All right. Congratulations on your new venture. We're going to try and talk now about when we can meet next. We talked about next week. I think it's the only item on our agenda. That's next Tuesday. That's the 27th. Is that workable for you?
Yeah, 100%.
Are we still meeting the following week?
That's the thing. There's nothing on the agenda right now for that meeting.
For the following week. So is there any objections to just pushing it off 2 weeks, or do you need this, Kevin, right away?
It would be greatly appreciated because we are at a standstill with our application process without the special permit. So we were hoping to get the 20-day appeal period ticking as soon as possible.
And one thing worth noting is that we probably don't have August 3 because at this point, no new submittals could be received unless any other item is continued from this evening's business.
Okay. It might not be meeting that week anyway because there's nothing on the agenda. All right. Well, listen.
Okay.
So it looks like we're going to two things. First, I'd like to apologize on behalf of the planning board to you, Kevin, that we were unable to get a quorum to accommodate you. It looks like we would have made a vote tonight. So you have my apology on that. It's something that happens very rarely here and we try to avoid, but it can happen. And the other thing is I'm looking for a motion to continue this special permit till next Tuesday, the 27th at 6 o'clock.
Motion to what's it? Not postpone. What was the word you just said?
Continue.
Continue this hearing to Clovercraft LLC, DBA Budsy to Tuesday, July 27th at 6 p.m.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor? Harry?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
And I am an aye. So we'll have, I'm confident, our quorum at that time, and we'll see you in 1 week. Okay, Kevin?
Awesome. I appreciate it very much, guys. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And now we see how omniscient Jesse is. There we go.
Here I am. All right. So, folks, moving right along to the next item on the agenda is Lathrop Community, Inc., a request for approval of a conservation restriction per condition 5 of amended special permit decision from January of 1998. Is there someone here to speak to this item?
I just readmitted Jeff's. Oh, sorry.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, sorry, I'm trying to juggle 2 meetings tonight, so I apologize.
No problem, Jeff. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. So why don't you give us a rundown briefly about what we're doing here?
Sure. So, I believe what's been submitted was a conservation restriction and plan that seeks to satisfy one of the conditions from the original special permit for the Lathrop community, which was never fulfilled. And so this seeks to, satisfy that condition and allow them to move forward. But the plans. I know Elizabeth from, apologies, juggling a couple of different plans here.
Kestrel.
Had provided some documents regarding the restriction, and I can share plans with you that were submitted and that are intended to be recorded as soon as the board approves.
Sure, so just to be clear, so there was a requirement in the 98 special permit or the amendment of the special permit, right? That the sort of that the open space was going to be placed in a conservation restriction, and that this is the process we're dealing with now, right?
Exactly. Okay. So yeah, that open space that was shown on those plans, largely was defined at the time those plans were approved, based on wetland delineations and boundaries. And so, I can share one of these plans. But so, what we've done is go through and actually put meets and bounds to these conservation areas. There's this one on the eastern portion of the property that's roughly a little over 11 acres. And then on the western portion of the property, it's essentially, from this line beyond where the development is, all the way to the western edge of the property. If I can open this up, I will share this with you also. Sorry, just navigating here. So then this plan here, hopefully you can see this one, which covers everything on the western portion of the property.
No, we lost your screen, Jeff.
Oh, okay, sorry about that.
That's all right.
Let's try this again. There we go.
Yep.
So there we go. So this is the restriction, the CR that would be placed on the western portion of the property. It would encompass all of Bassett Brook and all the fields and areas to the west of the existing development.
What's the size of that parcel, Jeff?
This one is 66.5 acres.
Okay. And so the plan, right, is to have Kestrel Trust supervise and manage the conservation land?
Correct. Yep.
And just process-wise, I believe this goes to the city solicitor as well. Has that happened yet?
I'm not aware if it has or not, but that would be...
It has. So
okay.
This has already been approved by the Easthampton Conservation Commission and the city solicitor. The city solicitor specifically suggested language that stated that this does not discharge other responsibilities that pertain to the special permit. This language was accepted and adopted into the CR by the applicant.
Great.
It still has to go before city council, and that's only because that was originally conditioned in the, no, CRs need to go before city council. Sorry, all CRs for some reason.
Sounds good. Anything else from your end, Jeff?
Nope, not from my end.
All right. Any planning board members with comments or questions?
No. Straightforward.
Any members of the public with any comments, questions, thoughts? You can either raise your Zoom hand, turn on your camera and raise your real hand, *6 or *9 on a phone, or if you just want to unmute and ask to address us. All right, I see nothing.
I motion to approve the conservation restriction for the special permit decision of January 1998 for the Lathrop Community, Inc.
Second that.
All right, voting to approve satisfaction of the condition from the 98 Special permit. Harry.
Aye.
Chris.
Aye.
James.
Aye.
And I am an aye. Jeff, thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
So what do you, from on an administrative perspective, should I just, I can connect with you on offline on this. I've been communicating with Elizabeth. Should I communicate with you, Jeff?
No, I think Elizabeth's probably the correct one. If there's plan changes or anything, keep me in the loop. But yeah, I think Elizabeth's probably the one to coordinate with.
Beautiful.
Okay.
All right. Excellent. Thank you very much. Best of luck, Jeff.
Yes.
All right. I think that's it. End of our agenda.
Will you be attending, because you've recused, you won't be at the next meeting?
I will not be.
Okay. Well, you'll be
Unless
missed.
you want me to come and just recuse myself and turn off my camera.
No, obviously not. But hopefully
Danny has confirmed he'll be here for the next meeting?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Okay. I motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
All right. Voting to adjourn. Harry.
Aye.
Chris.
Aye.
James.
Aye.
And I am an aye. Thank you all again for a wonderful
Good night.
meeting.
Excellent. See you next week.
Bye, guys.